Lesson 6. Lesson 6 is all about symmetry with figures. Now, there's actually two types of symmetry that are discussed in this lesson, okay? But symmetry is not really a term that's all that new to you, so it should not be that difficult of a lesson. Symmetry. You've seen or heard symmetry before, but the exact geometrical or mathematical definition is when you transform a figure so that the image and the pre-image coincide or line up. So the idea is kind of this. Let's say I take this letter H, okay? Basically, this is symmetrical if you fold it kind of like that, then the two match up, right? You have two basically identical parts. So the idea behind symmetry sometimes is kind of like an idea of splitting. So, you know, do you cut it, do you fold it, that sort of thing. Now, if you go by the colors, you can kind of see here this one has colors. If you went by the colors, you'd only be able to do vertical. But let's say you went on the back. If the back is white, not only would we be able to go vertically, but we'd also be able to go horizontally. Okay, so sometimes you have to kind of pay attention, you know, are they also talking about the design or the pattern, or is it just the outer figure shape? Okay, so just kind of watch for that. Now, another vocabulary word is line of symmetry. This is the kind of like the place where it's divided. So again, if I use the H, this would sort of like have one vertical, but if you're not talking about the colors, we'd have one and then two, because we could kind of go like both ways. So this is just like, sort of like, where do you reflect it? Where does it get folded? So if you look at the examples down below on 1 through 6, just kind of asking you, you know, draw in the lines of symmetry, okay? So if you look at number 1, this would basically be cut right through here. So this would have like one line of symmetry. So why don't you just pause it for a quick second and see if you can finish these other 5 examples. Okay, hopefully you have paused it and tried it. Number 2 would actually have none, or if we want to say 0, that would actually not be able to be folded or cut in half. Number 3 actually has 4. You'd have a vertical, a horizontal, and then you'd also be able to go diagonally. I'm not very good at drawing straight lines here, but I think you kind of get the idea. So you'd be able to go vertical, horizontal, and then kind of on an angle there. Number 4 would have 2. Again, you'd have a vertical and a horizontal. So this would kind of be like my letter H. Number 5, how many did you get on number 5? The correct answer is 8. What you'd have to do is you'd go through each of these little like points or tips or whatever you want to call them. So you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4. But now you'd have to kind of almost like number 4, you'd have to go in between. So we've got 4, and then we'd have 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. Okay? So make sure you kind of look at some of the diagonal ones too. All right, number 6. I think this is some type of a flag for South Africa, but I'm not 100% sure. But this one has 1, and it would go right kind of down the middle there. So symmetry. This is called line symmetry. Basically, you're folding it over a line. The second type of symmetry is called rotational. And since we've already done rotations, you should be kind of familiar that basically this is when you rotate it. So basically what you're going to do now, remember my H, let's take another H, so I basically have 2 of them, okay? If you take this H, notice they line up, but if you rotate it, when will it line up again? So notice I'm kind of spinning it. It would line up 1, kind of get stuck there 2 times. So it'd basically be upside down and then right side up. So rotational symmetry is all about, like, you know, what's the degree that you can turn it. Now, angle. Angle just basically says, you know, what's the degree? So if you're taking my H example, think about the letter H. You'd have to turn it all the way upside down. So the angle would be 180 degrees. Because every time you take and turn this 180, then it lines up, right? So the angle would be 180. The order is how many times do you actually rotate it? Well, think about the H example. Basically, the order would be 2, because you can turn it once and then twice. Because remember, you're going to 360. So it's sort of like 180 and 360, okay? Now, if you note, I put a little note here on the bottom. Angle and order are very close. I mean, every figure is 360, right? So, in a way, every figure has at least an order of 1. Now, most of the time, they don't consider an order of 1. Because everything has 1. So you can either put 1 or not. Most of the time people are going to say none, okay? But what you basically do is you take 360 and you say to yourself, how many times can I turn it? Well, if you can turn it twice, then that means the angle is 180 degrees. So this is the angle, this is the order. Do you see how, in a way, it's sort of like a little equation, how they're kind of related to each other? So I just kind of put that little note on there, is one is very closely related to the other one. So what I'd like you to do is turn your notes over, and I'd like you to pause it here, and I'd like you to try numbers 7 through 12. Okay, hopefully you went ahead and paused it there, and what we're going to do now in numbers 7 through 12 is we're going to determine if they have rotational symmetry, and then we're going to determine the angle and the order. So if you look at number 7 isn't going to work. So this does not really have, no rotational symmetry. Now some people will say that it has 360. Yes, everything has 360, but your book says that if it's only 360, we should say none. So if it's only 360, we should say that there's no rotational symmetry. That's kind of like what your book says. So we're going to kind of go by that, okay? All right, if you look at number 8, the answer is yes, it does. The angle is 180, which means the order is 2. Now, some people have a hard time with that one, seeing it. If you have a piece of tracing paper, put your tracing paper down and trace it. And then you almost have to just kind of guess, but if you I'm going to label this the top, okay? If you put your pen or pencil down here in the middle, and then you just kind of spin it. Now I kind of lost it a little bit there. Do you notice how it does match up? Now my tracing job's not the best, my curvy lines and that sort of thing, but do you notice how it does kind of match up upside down? And then do it again. Now I do agree maybe the lines are a tiny bit off there when you rotate it, but again, I don't know if that's just I'm not a very good artist or it actually doesn't, because it almost kind of looks like it doesn't match up quite, does it? So I could sort of either say yes, or I guess in a way I could kind of say no, because it doesn't look like it matches up perfect. Okay, let's try 9. How about 9? What do you think on 9? I'd say this one is a yes, and it's 4. And then if we take 90 divided by 4, or sorry, 360 divided by 4, we get 90. I had the answer in my head. And if you're not sure, again, let's try tracing paper. Let's see if this one works a little better. I'm not a very good circle drawer. Alright, so we're going to say this is the top. So if I hold it down, we'd have 1, it'd match up. 2, it'd match up. 3, it'd match up, right? And then 4, all the way back. So do you see how I got the 4? Sometimes what I do is I almost get the order and then I just take 360 divided by 4 and I got the 90. That's what I was doing in my head, and that's why I kept saying 90, because that's just the way I work it out in my head. So like on number 10, this has rotational and it's 3. So it's like 1, 2, 3, right? So to get the angle, I just go 360 divided by 3, and that's 120. So for me, I always do the order first, and then that gives me my angle. But maybe some of you do it a different way. That's just what works for me. All right, an 11. An 11 is yes, there's 2, and it's just 180. So again, if you're not sure, take your tracing paper, maybe label it top. You can kind of see there's 1, and then right back's 2. Okay? All right, how about number 12? Nope, this one's not going to have any. This one, the only thing would be 360, but remember, your book doesn't count that, so that one we would just have to say no. All right, hopefully I didn't confuse you too much on 8. That one's a little tricky, so that one I guess I could see both. I won't put one like that on the test, so I'll make it a little bit more clear. All right, on the next section, these 4 here, basically they're asking for both. Does it have reflection, and then does it have rotation? So if we look at a yin-yang here, because of the colors, if we try to reflect it, the colors won't match. So this one's going to have no reflection, but will it have rotation? So if you look at the rotational one, is it going to work? Because of the colors? No. So this one's going to have no reflection and no rotation as well. Okay? Let's try one more together. Let's try 14. Is it going to have reflection? Whoops. What do you think? Reflection? I'd say yes. Reflection is going to have 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to have 4. What about rotation? Rotation is going to have 4 as well, and that's going to make it 90 degrees. Because again, if you're not sure, take your tracing paper. We're going to turn it. 1. Is that square right? Did I do my square good? 1. Looks like that square doesn't quite match up, doesn't it? Looks like it's almost longer this way. If it's a perfect square, then it should. If it's not perfect, then it's not. 2. So then I guess I would have to say that this one doesn't work. So it's not 4. It looks like that one doesn't match up, right? But it does look like this matches up. So I'm going to have to change my answer here. So if you did a guess like me, you might have got it wrong. I kind of just went by the way it looked. So this should be a rotation of 2 and 180 degrees. Okay? And again, grab some tracing paper if you're not sure, because just when I looked at it, I thought, okay, it'll match up when I turn it this way, but this must be longer than this one. So we've got 2. So why don't you pause it here and try 15 and 16, and maybe I'll have to reevaluate mine as well, but give it a try. All right, on 15, for reflection, reflection is 0. And the reason is these kind of things right here. If you draw it down, that's not going to match up. Or if you the only really way would be a vertical one, but it's kind of like these pieces don't match. Now how about rotation? Rotation's going to work. Rotation is 3, which makes it 120. Because when you turn this, it stays. So the turning would work, but not the reflection. All right, on 16, the reflection is 8. You've got all of these lines, so 1, 2, 3, 4, but then you have to go down the middle. So number 16 is kind of similar to number 8 over here, or sorry, number 5 over here, okay? So it's got 8 reflections, And the rotation is 8 as well. And then the order's 8, and the angle then would be 45. So again, if you kind of draw this, so you got the top, you know, you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you can kind of see how you spin it, and every spin is like 45 degrees, okay? This ends technically 12/6. This last piece is a little bit more 3D, so I'm actually going to record that in a separate video. So if you want to know a little bit of the 3D heads up, go ahead and watch the second half of the video.